Hey, what's up, everyone? Sir Cardinal back. I just got home from work, and as soon as I was going to head to work tonight, there was a lot of notifications on my phone. So there was a lot more trades that happened after the 3 o'clock deadline. Let's get right into it, shall we? The first trade of after 3 o'clock, when I was on my way to work, the Vegas Golden Knights picked up forward Thomas Tatar from the Detroit Red Wings. The Golden Knights shipped off a 2018 first round draft pick, which is probably going to be at the bottom of the barrel, a 2019 second round draft pick, who knows where they're going to be next year, and also a 2021 third round draft pick. Detroit sheds 5.3 million off their cap. The Golden Knights had plenty of money to spend on this, but I'm a little bit confused on where Thomas Tatar is going to play on this team. They have their top six forwards all set, unless they're planning to have three scoring lines and one checking line come playoff time. But he's a streaky scorer. He's young still, but his cap hit is 5.3, which is fine. Golden Knights can afford it, so we'll see what happens with this. But I like what Detroit did. They got rid of a salary, and they picked up some future draft picks, which is always great to have moving forward. You can always ship those off to get somebody that you might like later down the road. But I do like this trade for both teams, but just a little curious on what the Golden Knights were thinking on that one. And as soon as that trade happened, I got a notification on my phone. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers made a blockbuster trade this early afternoon, about 3:15, 3:20-ish. But these two teams don't shy away, even though they're in the same conference. If you guys remember, Martin St. Louis was traded to the New York Rangers before he retired. But anyway, onto this trade today. Defenseman Ryan McDonagh and forward JT Miller are headed to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and in return, the New York Rangers are receiving Vladislav Namestnikov, a 2018 first-round draft pick, a conditional 2019 second-round pick, forward prospect Brett Howden, and a defensive prospect who's currently in the WHL, Western Hockey League here in Canada, Libor Hajek. He's a defenseman. He's a pretty decent prospect, and Brett Howden, who played on Team Canada World Juniors a couple years ago, also is a very decent prospect. I love this trade for both teams. Namestnikov is 25 years old. He's still young, so he's going to replace JT Miller, who's only 24, and the cap hit for JT Miller is pretty cheap, so the Lightning ran away with that. And plus, you get Ryan McDonagh, a top four defenseman in this league, for his team. He's got a great supporting cast. He's got Anton Strowman. He's got Mikhail Sergachev. He's got Victor Hedman. So the Lightning didn't have to give up too much to get Ryan McDonagh. Currently, he's injured right now, but he should be okay by playoff time. And I think the Lightning made out like bandits on this trade, and the Rangers as well. They got their future. They shed a little bit of salary. They're getting a lot of draft picks, and they got tons of good prospects in this trade. And Namestnikov is only 25 years old too, so the Rangers didn't move anyone else this afternoon. That could happen by the draft, but I'm liking what the Rangers are doing moving forward. They're stockpiling their draft picks and their prospect pool, so both teams get a plus on that one. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Josh Jurish for Greg McKee of the Carolina Hurricanes. Greg McKee was on the Penguins, and he was on the AHL team. He was called up a couple of times this season, but he didn't really play that much. And Josh Jurish is a pretty good young forward as well. So I like this trade for Pittsburgh instantly, just because of what's coming to Pittsburgh and what Pittsburgh already has on their roster to help Josh Jurish move along. So I'm liking that trade for the Penguins. After that, the Winnipeg Jets and the Montreal Canadiens made a little trade. Defenseman Joe Morrow, who was on the Montreal Canadiens, was traded to the Winnipeg Jets. This is a nice depth defenseman. Joe Morrow was a Pittsburgh Penguin at the beginning of the year. He's a pretty good young defenseman. Boston Bruins, I think, had drafted him, but he's a really good young defenseman, and this should play in nicely for the Winnipeg Jets moving forward. He could fit right in. He's a stay-at-home defenseman, so that's great. He blocks shots, and he's a big hitter when he needs to be. And the Montreal Canadiens are adding to their draft picks. They added a fourth-round draft pick in 2018. So Montreal is getting some more pieces for the draft, so that's really good. And then the defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets now, Joe Morrow. He's just another big body, and hopefully he can ride the ship and start playing every day for the Jets, because this team is looking really good for the future. After that, the Calgary Flames and the Ottawa Senators made a small trade today. Nick Shore, who was acquired by the Ottawa Senators a few days ago he was part of that LA Kings deal with Marian Gaborik and coming to Ottawa with Nick Shore, but now he's traded to the Calgary Flames. Calgary Flames didn't really do much trading. They added like I told you earlier, they added a waiver pickup in Chris Stewart, and they picked up Nick Shore, which is a pretty decent player, but don't know where he's going to fit right now. I'm having a feeling he might play in the AHL for a little bit, but Nick Shore's a younger player, so he's going to come up hopefully and be with their main core in the future. And the Ottawa Senators just picked up a 2019 7th-round draft pick. Nothing major, but we'll see what happens with that in the future. But I like this one for the Flames, and with the young talent that they already have, and with Nick Shore. The Montreal Canadiens also made another trade with the Minnesota Wild. One, the defenseman Mike Riley, I don't know who he is. He is coming to Montreal, and Minnesota Wild will get a 2019 5th-round draft pick. It's always good to stockpile the draft picks in the future. Apparently, the 2019 draft is pretty deep, so this pick could be pretty good for the Minnesota Wild, depending on what the Canadiens do next season. If they're at the bottom of the standings again, that could be right up at top of the 5th round, and you never know who you're going to get. So I like this trade for the Wild. And Mike Riley, sorry, don't know who you are, so I don't know where your plans are. If you're going to be playing in the AHL, time will tell. And after that, the New Jersey Devils and the Edmonton Oilers made a trade. This one kind of hurts. The Edmonton Oilers traded Patrick Maroon to the Devils, and in return, the Oilers got a forward prospect from the NCAA. His name is J.D. Dudek. I've never heard of him. I'm going to have to read up on him and see what he has to offer for the Oilers. I'm pretty sure he's going to play in the AHL next season, but I know he's a center wing, so I was reading a little bit before I got here, so I didn't get to read too much about him, but he's a big, decent kid, so he's a right-handed shot, which is good. And they also received a 2019 3rd-round draft pick, so depending on what New Jersey does come next season, I think they're going to be better, so who knows, it could be in the middle of the pack of the 3rd round, but it's good. The Oilers are adding more draft picks. After the trade was done, Patrick Maroon had an interview. I listened to it. I was upset because he was very upset. He was very disappointed to be leaving the Oilers, and he hopes, he says the organization is a top-class organization. He's going to miss it. And then someone asked him, he goes, would you consider re-signing with the Oilers in the offseason as a free agent? And he said, never say never. I would be open to coming back to Edmonton. So that makes me think he's doing another Thomas Plekanec situation with Toronto and Montreal. I think maybe this is possibly not the end for Patrick Maroon and the Edmonton Oilers. I think he might come back as a free agent come July 1st. After that, the Boston Bruins and the Chicago Blackhawks made a trade. Tommy Wingels from the Blackhawks is now a Boston Bruin, and the Bruins sent a conditional 2019 5th-round pick. I'm believing this has to do with something with playoffs, how many rounds or something like that, just to get that conditional. I didn't read anything about this trade, so I don't know what the condition is on this trade. But Tommy Wingels is a depth player and adding more pieces for the Boston Bruins because they're making a huge playoff push. And he's a good little player. He played for San Jose for a few years, and he's just a depth guy. He hits, he scores when he has to, but he's not that flashy. So I like this trade for the Bruins. We'll see what the makeup of this team is once they get all situated, and look forward to seeing what happens. After that, the Arizona Coyotes and Nashville Predators made a trade. Trevor Murphy from the Arizona Coyotes and Pierre-Cedric Labrie, forward prospect. I have no idea who these guys are. The Predators are, John Ravage. I know him. His dad was an NHLer back in the day, and he played for Team USA. He's a pretty good guy. And Tyler Gaudette. That name sounds a little familiar. Not quite sure. This is a small little trade, but John Ravage is probably the biggest piece out of this deal. Looks like, Ravage is going to Nashville, and Gaudette is going to Nashville, and Trevor Murphy and Pierre-Cedric Labrie are going to the Arizona Coyotes. Can't really comment on this. Not sure. It's probably depth AHL players going down to their respective farm teams. And the last trade of the day, this is a nothing trade. The Colorado Avalanche acquired Ryan Graves, a defenseman, and the New York Rangers got a defenseman, Chris Bigras. No idea who these guys are. It's probably farm team trade just to get their their players stocked up for the AHL. Nothing really major there, so I'm not going to really comment on it. But I'm just going to give my opinion on winners and losers of this trade deadline. I felt that the team that got the best return was the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning acquired a top four defenseman. They also got a nice top six player in JT Miller. Tampa needed another top four defenseman, and McDonough is that guy. Once he gets healthy, they should have a very scary defensive core going into the playoffs. Like I said, they have Victor Hedman, Anton Strowman, Mikhail Sergachev, and I think Dan Girardi is still there, but I'm not sure. But it's a no-brainer that that the Tampa Bay Lightning won this trade because they got needs what they needed, and the Rangers, not significant draft picks, not elite, but two draft picks and two decent prospects. They didn't have to subtract any major pieces, the Lightning, so the Rangers added some more depth in the prospect pool and added more in the draft pool too, so that's great. It looks like that Tampa Bay is really pushing hard for the Stanley Cup in the next couple of years, I think, with the names that they added and what they have currently. The window, I think, is like maybe 2 years before they actually win a Stanley Cup. If they don't win a Stanley Cup, then we'll see what happens, but I think they should get a Stanley Cup. This team is really, really strong, and we'll see what happens. Let's see, I'm reading something else here. Yeah, all the Eastern Conference teams, I think really, like the Pittsburgh Penguins added Derek Brassard. Toronto, Columbus, New Jersey, Philadelphia were all proactive in making trades to better their teams for this year. In the West, the Jets added a surprising deal with St. Louis acquiring Paul Stastny and taking it away from a division rival. Looks like the Golden Knights were really going after Erik Karlsson today, but it fell apart. And the Sharks adding Evander Kane, which is a pretty big move, I think, for a Western Conference team. Young, skilled, fight, hit, whatever. He can do it all. I just hope he gets his head on straight, and hopefully the veterans in San Jose push him along in the right direction. I said the Rangers are definitely a winner of this trade deadline. They added a lot of stuff. Like I said, they got rid of Michael Grabner. Yes, they lose Rick Nash and Ryan McDonough, but you know what? They're going to have some cap space, and they're going to probably get right back in the thick of things sooner than later. I think Winnipeg was a decent winner today as well. They picked up a pretty good centerman. I can't really argue with that, what they got. Now I'm going to say some losers. I think Erik Karlsson is a loser today. I feel really bad for him because of all the rumors that were saying that he would get moved today. Now he has to stay in Ottawa for the rest of the season, and he's going to be asked every day about how he feels, and I think it's going to be it's going to really set him back a little bit. Hopefully this gets resolved sooner than later. I expect, hopefully, if this doesn't end well, I hope he's traded by the deadline, because I would hate to be in Ottawa and ask the same questions over and over and over. So right now Ottawa is in a hot mess right now. I just hope that Erik Karlsson can adapt and just go with it. Usually hockey players are pretty good like that, but sometimes little things like this will weigh on them, and then that affects their game. Just hope Erik Karlsson doesn't lose his game at all. But we'll see. Hopefully this gets resolved sooner than later. Another loser, I think. The Golden Knights really didn't do too much today. They had tons of cap space to add. They had a lot of pieces that they could have traded to get better quicker and to go for their playoff push. Thomas Tatar, I don't really think is a great pickup for them, but it could be. Um, they used some of their extra cap space that they did have. I'm reading that they ate some of Derek Brassard's contract in order to facilitate his trade to the Penguins. The thinking was that if the Knights helped the Pens get Brassard, it would keep him away from a Western Conference foe, namely the Jets. So I've been hearing that the Jets were really going after Brassard, and then I guess Vegas jumped in to help the Penguins not get that happen. But they paid 40% of his salary to go to Pittsburgh, and then all they got in return was Ryan Reeves, which is great. He's a good mucker, but I just feel like that's all you got for helping Pittsburgh was Ryan Reeves. Yeah, and they overpaid, I think, on the draft picks, but who knows? I not an expert, but yeah, streaky scorer in Tatar. But like I said, they got to play the games with him, and who knows what they're going to do with Thomas Tatar. So they're not really a loser. They're on the cusp of being a loser today, but I felt they could have done a lot more with the assets that they had in place. One loser I know for sure. I said it earlier. I feel really bad for UC Jokinen. He's been on 4 teams already this season. He's been on the Oilers. He's been on LA Kings. He's been on Columbus, and he was traded to Vancouver today. I just feel really bad that this guy's moving around. He's getting up there in age. I think he's gonna retire at the end of the season. The only positive about this is maybe he's got some frequent flyer miles. And then the hesitation, I think, on first round draft picks this trade deadline was pretty evident. A lot of teams didn't give up a lot of first round draft picks for this year. Usually that's what happens if you want to get marquee players, but the list for marquee players this year wasn't that high, and the ones that were high didn't get traded at all. But that's it. What else to say? Now it's just we got to wait for the rest of the regular season to conclude. There's another few weeks to go, 20 games, about 22 games left, and hopefully these players who got traded today get adapted real nicely with their new teams and gel with their new teammates, and hopefully we see some teams start to pull away and get closer to that playoff clincher, and we'll see what happens. But thanks for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. I know it was a long day. I know the several videos were tedious, but I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my channel off the ground. But I appreciate you guys viewing. If you guys can give a like, subscribe, that'll be awesome. If not, then no big deal. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate everything, guys. Have a good night. Take care.